Hi, everybody. Thank you for that presentation. I learned a lot. Really nice to meet you. My name is Nina, and this is me. I'm from Denmark. I'm going to give the presentation in English, partially because even the taxi driver who I drove with over here didn't understand my Danish. So I'll continue in English, but really nice to meet all of you. I'm very honored to be here. I've been working with Kraken Technologies and Octopus Energy Group for the past 3.5 years. I started out in Octopus Energy working on the very, very initial phases of setting up a heat pump installation company under Octopus Energy. So very much to the point of start at the installer. That's what we were doing. I was in a warehouse in Slough, figuring out how to set that up from scratch. And I spent the majority of my time there working at Kraken. And the last 1.5 years, I have been, let's say, managing Octopus as a client of Kraken. Kraken is the technology platform behind Octopus Energy. So I'm going to talk to you about, it's going to be very linked, what I like to talk about as the consumer era that we are in today. So Octopus Energy Group consists of sort of 2 blocks, and when you look at it from the outside, Octopus Energy Group is really becoming this everything company for energy. So you've got Kraken over here. This is where I work today, which is in the process of being spun out. Will be spun out by April as its own independent company. And then you've got Octopus Energy over here, who span all the way from generation to of large-scale wind and solar, to installations of solar panels, batteries, heat pumps, so on, and then, of course, retail. And as you heard before, Octopus didn't exist 10 years ago, and today it's the biggest energy provider in the UK. It's been a phenomenally fascinating journey to be on, and has gone from nothing to 9,000 people working across this whole stream, right? So that's who I am. That's where I come from. Now to what I'm actually going to be talking about. So 3 points, my cheat sheet. This is what, if you just remember 3 things, these are the takeaways from the next 15 minutes. We're living in the era of the consumer in the world of energy, and consumers, unlike what many in my own home country in the energy industry there would believe, consumers, you and me, households, can actually deliver flexibility services if we have the right technology behind it and utilities start really obsessing about customers. All right. Bit of the context behind this, right? Like the theory behind why we're here and where we're going is, and I understand I'm probably preaching to the converted here in this forum, but it's been a big theme, and so I just want to demonstrate with a few anecdotes. So in a fossil world, when we all go home at 5 and we start cooking and cleaning and the factories are still running and so energy spikes, what happens, right? We burn more stuff, right? We burn more gas, we burn more coal, and ultimately generation responds to demand going up or down. Now, in a world that is dominated by renewables, which is where we will be going, last year alone, of all the new generation capacity that came online last year, 90% of it was renewable. It's fascinating, right? It's a massive shift. And in that world, we can't just flick on the sun and flick on the wind. And so the energy system then flips on its head to a world where we actually need for demand to respond to the variable generation. And this shift is absolutely mad, right? It's and we understand it in this room, but the fundamental underpinning of this is that businesses, but also regular people, regular households, have to actually change how they consume energy. And so how do we do that, right? How do we get regular households to extend their mental capacity and put effort into something as boring as how they use their energy so that they can shift their demand, right? You know this curve, right? But like the fascinating thing about the old world of like minor peaks in the evening to then, then the household goes and adds solar to the roof and suddenly they're not drawing from the grid in the middle of the day. Then they electrify their heating and the peaks become higher. And then they get an EV and it becomes even higher. Adds real complication to a system that's already flipping on its head. So how do we do it? How do we get Mr. and Mrs. to shift their demand? I don't know if anybody recognizes this. So we're in the land of EVs, right? Everyone and their dog has an electric car in this country, and you've been ahead for so long. But EVs are an old technology, right? Like we had EVs on the market decades and decades ago. They just looked like this, right? This is an Ellert, and it was the source of much mockery back when it came out, and not exactly the sexy thing you want to be picking up your date in when you're done with work. And everyone here drives around in electric vehicles, and a big reason for that has been great policy. But a reason why it's also expanding widely across the world is falling costs, but also because now driving around in an electric vehicle is just the nicer option, right? Like driving around in an EV today is just a better experience than driving around in a fossil car. It's like driving around in a goddamn iPhone, right? And so similarly, we can think about flexibility in the same way, right? We need a Tesla moment for flexibility because ultimately consumers, they want the same thing as they've always wanted, right? They don't actually care about flexibility. They don't care about sort of managing assets, and they're not really sitting around waiting either, right? What do consumers want? They want to drive around cheaply when they need it. They want a return on their investment, right? They're not getting solar panels because they look cool. And they want a warm home or cold home when they're there. And so for us to move from sort of eco-warriors or energy geeks into the masses, which is what we really need to do, you got to have the Tesla moment, right? And that's why I like to talk about it as the era of the consumer. Because it's all in their hands, right? It's in all of our hands. It's in the regular household's hands, whether we succeed or not. And to get them on board, utilities need to think really, really differently about their job. They need to think really, really differently about the role that they are playing in society and the relationship that they have with their customers. And for the first time in a century, utilities are not in control, right? They don't get to decide where, when, and how. Generation is no longer the big play, demand is. So the good news is that there's lots of ways that we can engage consumers in flexibility. And I'm going to talk about just a couple of them today. So this like ranger from active to passive is that there's lots of different ways to engage in flexibility, from the very active ones where you need consumers to make active decisions, to the completely passive ones where you and me, we don't have to do anything, but the combination of software and hardware and contracts do it for you. So let me talk about two of them. I'm going to talk to you about saving sessions. I'm going to talk to you about the fully automation. And then if I have an extra minute, I'll mention one of my favorite projects called Zero Builds Home. Cool. Okay. Here we go. Saving sessions. So what happens when we can foresee that we won't have enough electricity on the grid to supply the demand? We go out and we pay gas plants to fire up, right? Now, a few years ago, Octopus was convinced that an alternative to this was to pay consumers to just use less during those periods. And this idea, we went and talked to regulators and so on, and like everyone was convinced that was impossible, right? You can't get people to just change how they behave. And you can't do it in the time frame that we need them to, that's for sure. Fast forward a few years, and saving sessions became one of the key national grid tools for managing system stress last winter. So what is saving sessions? Saving sessions is a setup where homes and CNIs are paid the balancing revenues for reducing demand at key times. So it's open to all suppliers and aggregators, and customers just need a smart meter. That's it. So here you can see an example of a saving session. And what would happen was that me as an Octopus customer, on a cold winter afternoon, I would get a ping on my phone saying, hey, tomorrow between 5 and 6, there's going to be a lot of pressure on the grid, so we will pay you to use less energy. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. I'm going to opt in. And so when I opted in, the day after, I would go for a walk, turn off everything in my house, and I would come back, and I would come back when the hour was over. And I wasn't alone in doing this. Hundreds of thousands of people joined in, to the extent where you could see an actual real dip in aggregated consumption. And how did they do this? Like, how did they get someone like me to join in? They made it really, really fun, and they made it really gamified. And so actually, the amount of money that I was getting myself, quite limited, like it wasn't like breaking the bank. Over the course of a winter, if I was really good and like my house has been a bit bigger, I could have saved up towards £100. But for most, it was sort of a lower number. But what happened was, I would sort of the day after the saving session was over, I could go in and I could see if I had a green smiley, or if I had a red smiley, or if I had a yellow one. And what was happening in the background was that Octopus, powered by Kraken, had incredible data on all of my usage going back on how much energy had I been using every Tuesday between 5 and 6 for the last many weeks, right? Or last year at the same time. And they could compare my usual consumption with my actual consumption on the day. And that was the differential. And me, I would get a reward for it, right? So I would get Octo points, which I could either use to discount my next bill, or I could give it to someone else. I could give it to my mother or to my grandma or someone else who was on within the Octopus ecosystem. And one of the ways that they here you can see it. Yeah, here you can see my reward and how well I did. So over the course of one winter, we had just over 1.5 million signups who participated in a series of events over the course of the winter, shifting energy that was equivalent to a small coal plant in each session. And people got really fucking engaged, right? They got really engaged, and they were sharing it on their socials. They would be like playing games with their kids. They'd be going for walks, and suddenly you had this group of people who were also in it, not just for the points, but for the game of it itself, right? And it really did scale. Now this is an example that's like pretty active, right? It's not just me reacting to price signals. I was getting nudged, and so was everyone else. And there was a sort of a higher degree of gamification in it than just like a regular time of use tariff. But this is not enough, right? This is an example of how you can engage consumers if you think about them differently. But if we really want to scale to a point where it really makes the difference that it needs to, we have to move towards greater automation, right? So at the way end of the passive engagement with flexibility, we have something like Smart Flex. So the idea behind Smart Flex is that with all of these devices, it's very, very linked to the presentation you had earlier, right? With all of these devices, they're all connected, right? You need to do two things first. You need to electrify everything. You need to get rid of the gas boilers. You need to put a heat pump in instead, right? You need to get rid of the combustion engine car and you need to get an EV in instead. And once you've done that, you build some really smart software that integrates into the technology, and then you optimize it from afar. So, and then you make it a treat to join. So here's an example of the Octopus electric vehicle flexibility tariff. And I log into my app and I select whether I'm going to sign my electric vehicle up or my charger. And I just need to have one or the other be smart enough, right? So I was talking to my friend about this yesterday and she's like, I don't really know if we can sign up because we have this really dumb charger. And I was like, yeah, so that would block you on the one side. But then if your car is smart enough and we've integrated with BMW and Audi and all of these, then you'd still be able to join. So yeah, my car, which one do I have? What charger do I have? And then you authenticate the device. Then I come home from work, I plug it in and I say, tomorrow at 7:30, I'd like it to be at 80%, and then I leave, right? And I go in and I hang out with my kids and I have a good time. And then in the background, what's happening is that Kraken Flex is optimizing when your car is going to be charged based on essentially price signals, right? And so you can see here the predicted price goes down, and as it goes down, the import increases, right? And customers are always in control. They can always override if they need to, or boost the charging whenever they want. But here you take away all of the hassle, right? You make it so slick. You make it so easy. And you make it really fun because I have it all on my phone and I can track it. But I feel safe because I'm still in control, right? And when you do it like that, things can move quite quickly. So in January 2022, we had about 200 devices connected to the Kraken Flex platform. And a year later, we had 24,000. We were really proud of it. A year after that, we had 142. And today, we have about 700,000 assets connected to the Kraken Flex platform. It's the largest virtual power plant in the world. And it's a combination of both residential assets and industrial assets. And this dashboard, you can find it online. It's open. It's just the Kraken Flex dashboard, and you can play around with it. Now, I do have a couple of extra minutes, so I don't have a slide for this, but I want to tell you about one last thing on the fully automated end, which is one of my favorite projects, which is called Zero Bill Home. So the starting off with like the element of optimizing an EV makes sense because there's so many of them. But as Octopus sort of moved into the world of installing heat pumps and installing solar panels and started doing projects like Project Mercury, making sure that we can have the same standards for how assets actually talk to each other, a really smart group of engineers, some of the boffins working for us, were realizing that we could actually do this for a full house. And so the Zero Bill Home Initiative is a partnership between Octopus and real estate builders, where a series of homes, of new builds, are built to a certain standard of insulation, fully electric, no gas, of course, but heat pumps, certain number of solar panels, and a sizable battery. And with this, if your house is up to standard, you can be offered a zero bill tariff. That means that for 5 years, Octopus guarantees that you will never receive a bill for your energy. And if you think about this from a consumer perspective, it's amazing, right? Like living in England, you really see what happens when energy fluctuates, but all of us experienced it just a few years ago, right? And for someone with a regular income, the fluctuations that happen over the year can be really, really hard for your economy, right? For your own household economy. And so for a consumer, just the knowledge, the safety of knowing that like I don't have to think about this as part of my monthly payments ever again for the next 5 years. And what Octopus gets instead, or in return, is full control over how to optimize this house. So you still get to decide when it's warm, or how warm you want the house to be, or when you do your laundry, or however you want to use the house. And the only thing that's in the contract is that there's a max cap. So like you can't be like mining crypto in your basement on this contract. But other than that, you're free to use it as you want, right? And Octopus then trades the flexibility in the background. Incredible. And so this is scaled in the UK, and now they're rolling it out in Germany as well. So all of this is only possible with great data, right? You need a backing system that actually tells you easily all of the information that you need to know about your customers and their usage. And it also requires an incredible amount of trust between the energy company, the utility, and the end users. And I think if there were two really fundamental insights that Octopus had from the very beginning, it was that data is the business for a utility today. And so to run a successful business, you need to control your own data. And to control your own data, you can't have 60 different software systems that are sort of cobbled together with like wobbly APIs that don't really talk to each other. And that was all the market had. And so when our founders, Greg Jackson and James Edison, set out, they were like, guess we have to build it ourselves. And so Greg likes to talk about Octopus, jokingly, but he likes to talk about Octopus as the demo client for Kraken. And Kraken was built as this operating system for Octopus Energy to power all of these things. And as they grew, they realized that other utilities had the same problems, right? Being stuck on SAP or Oracle or whatnot, and not being able to actually follow with the times. And so since then, and then I promise I'll end right on time, Kraken has then scaled across the across the globe, and is currently contracted to about 75 million accounts worldwide, with customers across the world. About 65% of all households in the UK get their energy managed via Kraken. So whether it's EDF or E.ON or Octopus or Tesla, it's all coming out to households via Kraken. We're now present in Italy, Spain, Germany, the Netherlands, Japan, New Zealand, Australia, the US, Canada, Denmark, and the journey continues. Because the same thing is true, right? Data is the business. And why is data the business? Because we're living in the consumer era, right? So with all of that, and with a fantastic foundation for this conversation, I just want to thank you for inviting me today, and say that I unfortunately have to leave quite quickly after this, but I'll make sure that my email comes out to all of you, and I love talking about this. So please do reach out if you want to chat more.
Thank you, Nina. Thank you for an amazing presentation. The world is changing. This is kind of the theme we have today. And you've seen examples of companies and solutions that actually makes this come true. And at the last slide you saw, there were one Danish company you merge up with, you work together with, Norlys, to the right, no Norwegian companies. And we just have to be awake and follow what's going on. So reach out again to Kraken and use me and Nicholas. Thank you, Nicholas. This was a wonderful presentation. We are short on time, as always. But if there is one single question, we will allow it. Ask. Okay, Robert. Wait.
Pricing in Norway, the household pricing in Norway is a fixed price and it's quite low. How do you see the business case for Norway for consumers, like private consumers?
Good question. I wouldn't claim to be any expert on how the Norwegian market's structured. I think we've got a much better expert here. The move I think we're seeing in a lot of places is a move away from these kinds of fixed pricing structures. Sorry, double. And I won't speak to Norway because I don't know. But the single price really starts to struggle in a renewable system, where you want much more co-location and you want much more sort of, what's it called in English, like co-timing of generation and demand. And so my hypothesis would be that that's the direction across the world.
Still, flexibility will be in, even if there is a fixed price. So opportunities are tremendous, and we have to remember, as Nina said, the world is changing, and technology is kind of moving so fast that it's amazing how things will be. So we just have to be awake. So this is what we address in our meetings. So thank you so much to Nina and thank you to Niklas. We will follow up this theme in our next meeting, which will be on the 21st of May. Theme is artificial intelligence. In different aspects, follow up on this because things are changing. And before that, there will be a discovery expedition to Brussels and Paris. And hopefully we will meet also Kraken and Octopus Energy maybe in Paris to go deeper and just follow this path.
You're very welcome.
So we are working on that. You can follow us on our website. You can always reach out to me. I want to thank everybody that's contributed today, all the speakers, all the questions. I want especially to thank Suprasteria for hosting us with lunch and all support to Marcus and Urian and Sebastian and your team. I want you to come back, because this is the place to be. I'm a modest guy, as you understand. And we try the best of our knowledge to have interesting meetings like today, which also is not possible unless we get your support. So reach out, come up with ideas, and we will put the program together. So thank you so much. Remember that there are a few books left from Jonas, the professor. Take one if you want. It's free. So this is kind of just to update you more on this great presentation. And thank you all for coming today, and thank you all following us from back home. So till next time, take care.